Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of an Investor's Journey podcast. We are finally here. We have finally gotten all the data, everything together to put together the episode on Montana. Montana, for those of you that don't know, is a 22-month renovation that we just sold. It's been the project from hell. It's been something that's been the cause of a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of stress, but it's something that at the end of the day ended up working out. So I was kind of waiting. We actually closed on it. So today's Thursday. I try to put out these podcasts every single week on Wednesday. So for consistency's sake. But we closed on this. I think it funded Monday, and we were still running the numbers, and we're busy because we have other projects and other things going on. So we weren't able to get everything together so I can get the podcast out sooner. So I had to wait until pretty much today that I had some time. And it's Thursday, so sorry that this one's going out a little late. But we got all the numbers back in, and we got all the information. So I decided to go ahead and do this episode. A lot of you were waiting for it. Man. So, all right. I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible. I mean, because I could definitely see this being a 2-hour long episode. I mean, you could imagine in 22 months the amount of shit that we went through. I mean, I could make an episode about one project that usually takes us 2 to 3 months. Could you imagine, 22 months? So it was a hell of a project. Originally, this project was brought to us by a wholesaler. So we met him at one of Stepstone's masterminds. Stepstone is the realty that we're with. And he was telling us about a property that he was kind of working on downtown and he was having some trouble with. So we helped him out with it. And this property is located in Denver Heights in San Antonio. So you guys can look it up if you want. It's 718 Montana in San Antonio, Texas. I want to tell you the zip code, just cannot remember. It's like 78202. I don't know. But he brought us this deal, and he needed some help with it. So we helped him out. We kind of helped him negotiate it, how to get all the contracts in place. I mean, when he brought us the contracts originally, they were terrible, a lot of mistakes. And we helped them negotiate how to set up a lease back. Because like we told them, these people, the house, when we went to see it, it was something that, and I'm going to upload pictures of before and afters and everything so you guys can see. But before we went to, when we went to see this house, it was just something that's like, all right, I don't have to look at it, right? You understand that this house is just all screwed up in every which way. The house was originally on pier and beams. It had fallen off. So it was sitting on the floor, right? There were some, as you walked inside the house, there were piers like sticking through the floor. The front house, they didn't have a bathroom there. So it was, I think, a total of 3 or 4 of them that were living in the house between the front house and it has a back dwelling, about 400 square feet. The front house didn't have a bathroom, but they still managed to go to the bathroom. So you can imagine the smell. So the front house was all jacked up, falling on the floor. There was bullet holes through the door. I mean, these guys were drug dealers. They were crackheads. I mean, it was just, damn. And then the back house, same. It wasn't as bad, but it still had its problems. So we told him, all right, he negotiated as low as he could and everything. And then John had been wanting to do a project downtown for a long time because he likes that whole thing downtown of these historic homes and the features and all that, and he's been wanting to do one. Me, on the other hand, I could give 2 shits about all that. I look at the numbers, I look at the data, and I just don't like downtown at all. To me, downtown, there's no logical reason for why any of those houses are worth what they're worth. They sell for prices that make no damn sense. Let me mute the computer. They sell for prices that make no damn sense. And the neighborhoods, I would not put my family in there. But again, that's just my opinion, my own way of looking at it. And one thing that I try to do always in business is not go by emotions. So John, he's like, the numbers look good on this. And I was like, what the hell do we know about renovating a house that needs this much work in this area of town? So we started talking to some people that did know some stuff. And we showed them the house, we showed them the area and everything. They're like, yeah, I think you're good. I think you can be good for 280, maybe 300 as an ARV. And so one of them recommended a contractor that they used, and we went to talk to the contractor. We saw a few of their projects they were working on. They were doing actually really good work. So we brought them over to the property. They looked at the property, they looked at everything, and they're like, yeah, we can definitely do this. Yeah, this is no problem. So they gave us a bid, and we ran all the numbers. The original bid was, I remember somebody giving us a bid for 130, 135. I want to say that was the investor that told us it should cost about that price to renovate that house. So we had bought the house for $68,000 at the time. Oh, and a little funny story about buying the house. So we buy the house. It has a lease back because the tenants needed the original cash, some upfront cash so they can move out. So we actually told the wholesaler to hold back $30,000 because we needed a huge amount of money so they can move out. So they went ahead and moved out. We closed on this house in November 2017. So it's getting dark early, and we get a call from the previous homeowner saying, hey, we're all moved out. Can we get the $30,000? And they wanted the $30,000 cash because none of them had a bank account. So John was going to go down there, but it was like 6 at night, and it was already getting dark. And he's like, do you mind coming down with me? I was like, sure. So we go down there, sketchy as shit, and it's cold. It was already windy, and we wanted to change the locks on the door so we make sure that they weren't coming in again. And I told the guys speak Spanish, so I told John, I was like, if I just say run, you run. Don't ask why. I was like, because if I hear him say some shit in Spanish that should not be said, I was like, get the hell out of here. So it was just sketchy as hell, handing them over 30 grand and like ghetto area of town. I mean, it started off fun. So anyway, getting back to the story, we go ahead and we bought the house for $68,000. So we were like, all right, ARV of like 280, 300, we're good, right? We have plenty of margin in there. So we finally get these contractors over here to put out an actual bid, put a good scope of work, put everything together in writing and everything. All of a sudden, they come back with a bid of 170. So I was like, well, that's a little more than 135, right? So we're like, all right, we ran the numbers, 170, 68, maybe an ARV of 300. All right, we're still okay. We're good. Okay. So we go ahead. Because this was a project, so we typically like to borrow money as with interest only or points or whatever like that, right? But on a project like this we knew was going to take a long time and there was some risk, we decided to get one of our money lenders to come in as a partner. This way, any upside, they get paid a lot more, right? So we found a money partner, and they agreed and everything, and they came in as a partner. I don't want to disclose the terms or anything because I didn't talk to our money partner about this. That was going to be disclosing terms and stuff. So I don't want to piss them off. And a lot of you know who our money partner already is. So I don't want to disclose any terms or anything like that. But the terms were good and everything, and the money partner decided to go ahead and jump on board with us. So we started a project. And so far at the beginning, everything is going great, right? Because it's just pulling permits. It's, the demo side, which the whole house needed demoing. And I don't know, I would say a couple weeks in, I'm going into the project a lot and I'm talking to the contractor, and I wasn't liking the change orders we were getting. There were too many unforeseen issues. That kind of pisses me off. When you went to the house, it was sitting on the floor. Everything in the house is jacked up. The house is like 100 years old. Well, how are you did you not expect these issues coming up, right? I mean, we expected to rebuild the whole damn house. So that means everything brand new. And we talked to them and they agreed. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, but we didn't think the subfloor was going to be this bad. I'm like, dude, it's been on the floor for a year. I don't know how long it's been on the floor. Like, how would you expect the subfloor to look like? It's sitting on dirt where it gets wet. There's humidity. I mean, like, it was just starting to build up. And I hate when contractors make up those bullshit excuses. You know, so it's whatever. We're all right, one change order, another change order. And then all of a sudden the work just started slowing down. And I was telling John at the time, I was like, these guys are in over their head. They're checking out. And John, he liked the contractor. He liked he liked them and everything. So he was like, nah, man, they got this. They're good. So we kept talking to them. And there was just more problems coming up, more issues, more concerns. Then all of a sudden they lost their framer and they couldn't find another framer in all of San Antonio. So it was just one problem after another. And eventually, pretty much, they checked out. And their excuse for checking out is that they didn't think we had the money for the renovation. I was like, we have the money. It's right there. I mean, what the hell? We've always given you draws whenever you needed them. Like, it was just a bullshit excuse because they didn't know what the hell they were doing. So, all right, now we find ourselves with this project. All these delays, all this shit was months. And we're like, well, what the hell did we do? We bought it because they gave us the number and it worked with their numbers. Who do you call now? I mean, in San Antonio, skilled labor is not really, that easy to find. So we were starting to weigh our options. We're like, all right, let's start looking for another contractor, and at the same time, let's try to sell it. So we went ahead, put it on the market pretty much for a little bit more than what we were all in it for, to see what kind of bites we would get. And in the meantime, we actually found a contractor that at the time he came over, he checked out the property, and we had a lot of contractors come in throughout that time. And I mean, it was just nobody knew how to deal with the house. They didn't know how to stand it up straight. They didn't know how to frame it out. I mean, there were walls that were there before that weren't there anymore. The trusses needed to be moved. I mean, it had too much structural issues, and you needed good framers, people that actually knew what they were doing. So a lot of contractors, they're more like handymen. They didn't know exactly what the hell they were doing. And then we had these contractors come by, and he looked at everything. He's like, well, yeah, of course you have. He started pointing out the shit that we already knew, which was helpful. It was reassuring, right? Because it was like, all right, this guy knows his stuff. So he's looking at everything. He's like, I can definitely do this. I can take this on. And he was at the time looking at it to buy it himself. And he was going to do the work. And we're like, well, look, we already own the house. So why don't we just partner, right? We own the house. You handle the work, and we'll split the profits. So the contractor is like, yeah, that sounds good to me. So he went ahead. He pretty much gave us a bit of what it was going to cost and everything. We drew up the contracts, and we did the terms and everything. Same thing. Don't want to disclose the terms because it also involves the money partner. But it was going to work out for everybody involved. So they come in, and they start the work. Man, they start hauling ass. They're fixing everything. The back house, when they started ripping up the subfloor and everything, it was like a jigsaw in the back house. They had, I don't know who the hell had built the back house, but it was just pieces, chunks of, 2x4s, 2x6s tied with each other. I mean, that back house was pretty much rebuilt completely. In the previous contractors, they had screwed up a lot of shit, and we had already paid them like about $30,000 that they were supposed to have done in work. And a lot of that stuff had to be redone. So it was a lot of fixing, a lot of, correcting all their mistakes, all their screw-ups. Long story short on that, the other contractors have a food truck now somewhere in like West Texas or whatever. So there you go. But these guys got at it. They started getting the job done, and their bid originally was $165,000. So this is already So the other guy's bids, if you remember, it was 170. This guy's bids was 165, but this is already on top of 30 grand of work that we already paid these other guys, right? So we're looking at all this. We're like, shit, like this is gonna get a little crazy. So we were looking at comps continuously. We spoke to the money lender, and we told the money lender, hey, these are the numbers. These are everything. Are you sure you want to move forward? Because we can sell it right now, and we kind of pretty much just walk away. And the money lender, they're like, no, let's do it. This is a cool project. So let's see us through. So we were like, all right. So as long as our money partner's happy, we'll continue. So we went ahead, and man, it was just problems with the city. The property, because it's so old, it needed to have a replat. Something with the legal description of the property wasn't right. So that took like 6 weeks for that to get sorted out. I mean, it was just one delay after another. And, it was just such a nightmare of a project to handle. So we're building it, we're doing this, and we're just trying to cut costs. So what we decided to do was we kept one wall. This one wall was the only wall that kept it, so we can still call this house pretty much like a 1920 build, because it's the only wall in the whole house that we could actually keep. We had to rip off the roof. It had a metal roof. We were gonna keep it and just refinish it. Now we had to rip all that off and rebuild the roof, pretty much rebuild everything. So I mean, everything in this house is brand new. So now we started seeing like, all right, how can we still make this project work, right? And try to cut down the costs as much as possible. So we started kind of working with the siding. So we didn't want to go with new siding, even though you can in that area, because we wanted to have that historic feel. So we found the historic type of siding, and we put it on the front and on the right side of the house, which are the two sides are actually exposed that everybody can see. And on the other side, in the back of the house, we actually put just fiberboard siding. But you can't tell because, like, as a contractor, you can look at it, or as a flipper, you can look at it and understand that, hey, siding is different. But everybody we took to the house, nobody could tell. Nobody realized it was a different siding, because once you paint it and everything looks the same. So we saved some money there. We went ahead, we did like tall windows in the front of the house. That way you have like these beautiful tall windows, because you have 13-foot ceilings that we wanted to actually preserve. And we also preserved some of the shiplap that was being removed from the house. We didn't know what we were going to do with it, but we're like, hey, let's just keep it and see what we're going to decide to do later. And we went ahead and we kept that. Let me see. I'm trying to think of, I made a list so I wouldn't forget all this stuff. So we kept all those things. And one of the things that we changed with these contractors is that we started having a lot of meetings with them continuously, almost damn near weekly, on, hey, how's the project coming? How's this coming? How's that coming? Because we wanted to make sure that if these guys got into trouble, we could catch it early enough, right? So we were meeting continuously. What are we doing with this? What do we do? Over communicating, which I definitely recommend to do. So we were having so many meetings, making sure that all the colors were right, making sure that everything was right. There were a lot of things that they wanted to do that they were used to doing that were like, no, it's not necessary. These are not things. Because, I mean, a contractor, and especially like them, they do really good work. But the problem is, like, sometimes you don't need that much attention to detail in certain areas of the house, right? Where you're just not going to get the value. I'm trying to recall a scenario, but, well, one of them was the cabinets. So he has a cabinet guy, and he wanted to use them to build these custom cabinets because they're really cool, they're really nice, they're sturdy wood cabinets. And I didn't want to do that because I was like, I get it, but at the end of the day, they look the same as the cabinets that we buy. There are self-closing hinges and everything. And these ones, we know the lead time, we know everything. He's like, no, my guy can get it done, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, his guy couldn't get it done. They got backed up, whatever the hell the excuse was, but it took forever to get the freaking cabinets in. And all while we didn't need to do that. You understand? So it's one of those things that, like we talk with John, is that we pick the materials. You understand? Because I get it. You might have friends or people that you have relationships with, but it's like when we understand our lead time and we know what it is and we know that it's not necessary in those areas, we pick the material. So again, those were more delays that we were having. But all in all, I mean, the biggest thing was there was a lot of hesitation with us and the contractors, right? So the contractor had just come from being screwed over from other investors, and we had just come from being screwed over from other contractors. So we were both like, they wanted more reassurance, we wanted more reassurance, and we had to keep going back and forth to kind of like come to a middle ground, right? And at the time, I mean, they're the ones that could have walked away at any given time. They have nothing to lose, so it was a lot of give and take, a lot of still risk taking on our end and stuff that we didn't like to do. But we went ahead, we were working it out, we got it done, and we were able to build a good relationship with these contractors. But with the house, we were going back and forth on everything. What tile are we going to use? We're going to use this one. Well, we need cheaper. Let's mix this with this backsplash or this accent piece so we can break it up a little bit so it looks a little fancier. On the bathrooms, I mean, one thing we didn't anticipate is 13-foot ceilings. That's a lot of wall. So on the showers, when you're doing the tile surround on a 13-foot shower, I mean, we were looking at it, I was like, I don't want to go all the way to the ceiling with tile. That's a lot of tile. Like, we didn't pick the right tile for that. So we were kind of like just seeing what to do, how to break that difference and everything. And apparently one more row of tile kind of did it on one of them. On the other one, we decided to add a window. And the contractors were able to find like a really big freaking window. And it just made all the difference. I mean, little tricks like that really brought in a lot of light, and it brought in a lot of character to the bathroom, right? So these are bathrooms that are typically dark. Now they have like these huge light coming in, natural light coming in. So we went ahead with that. The contractor had a designer part of his team, and this designer had found some old old dressers. And she wanted to repurpose them, distress them and everything and use them as like vanity sink. The idea was great. It was great. It was a great idea. I won't recommend it because the amount of work it took, the amount of time it took, it didn't look amazing when it was done, in my opinion. I looked at it. I was like, okay. It's a different look, right? But the amount of time it took and labor it took to get that to that point, I don't think it was worth it at all. So those are things that we were making mistakes along the way, kind of seeing like, oh yeah, that sounds really cool and all this, and the contractor very confident that he can do it, and completely underestimating how much modification it would take to make a dresser into sinks. So they still did a great job with it, but it wasn't something that was necessary to do. So that's something that we learned for, obviously, the next time we do a project like this. And we didn't anticipate the landscaping because at the whole time we were so preoccupied with the house, we never budgeted in landscaping. And, I mean, this house has no landscaping, nothing. No fences, nothing. So that was an added bonus. That we actually came out of our pocket for because it just wasn't accounted in the scope, and we didn't want to go back to our lender and be like, hey, we need an extra $10,000 for landscaping. So we went ahead and put that up ourselves to keep the relationship with the lender and everything, and to make sure everything keeps working smoothly and keeps going forward. Then we decided we have the shiplap. We went to look at a house with John in that area. I think it was in Dignity, which is a historic district. And as soon as we walked in, we saw the shiplap on the ceiling. We're like, that's cool. That's an interesting feature. So we did the same thing. We did it for the living room. We did the shiplap, so it divides the living room from what is the dining room and kitchen. So we put it up there, and then we still had more left over, so we decided to do an accent piece on an office that we built in the front. So the whole house has 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and an office. So that office, we did a whole wall as an accent piece that you can even see from outside. And I think it came out really nice. And those are the things that we did with the shiplap, but we wanted to do because at the same time, we're like, we need to stand out. We need to do stuff to this house that it makes it stand out from all the other ones. And John, being that he grew up in doing concrete and a lot of stuff like that, he's seen how it is to have finished concrete and concrete countertops. So he's like, we should do concrete countertops. He showed me a few pictures. I thought they looked like shit. So I was like, they look like crap. He's like, no, this is really cool. So, I mean, it just went to show the emotion side, right? Like, he thinks it's really cool. I think it looks like shit. At the end of the day, it's an opinion. So we decided to go ahead and take the chance, because one thing that kind of like I was thinking, I was like, all right, look, we're either going to get people that love it or hate it, right? We're not going to get an in-between. That's what you use granite for. But if they love it, I think that alone is going to sell it, right? The fact that it's just funky enough that it's going to sell it. And if they hate it, but they still want the house, we'll rip out the countertops and put granite in. I don't care. I mean, if the house is pretty much sold, I'll spend the money. So we felt like it was a very small risk to take. So the concrete gets done. Everything's done. It gets put in, installed, and everything. And he's like, so what do you think? I was like, still looks like shit to me, but, whatever. If you like it, if other people like it, I was like, it's not my personal taste, but yet again, I wouldn't even move to that neighborhood. So I'm not your buyer, right? So I was like, all in all, it matches. It matches the house. It matches everything that we were doing to the home. In the living room areas, this is another cool tip that worked out pretty well, is our neighbors to the left, it's like this dump of a house. So what we had is that you have the living room and the kitchen on that side, right? And we wanted to put windows, but we don't want to put windows that you're seeing into that dump, because it's like, not a very pleasant view. You're going to end up putting curtains and everything, trying to block them out as much as you can. So what we decided to do was actually go with 3x4, I believe, windows that go all the way almost at the ceiling. And so they're still in the wall, but up on the ceiling at the top. So this is 13-foot ceilings. So it's way up there. And what that does is still brings in the natural light, but you don't have a direct line of sight to those neighbors. So that was a really cool feature, and it is a feature too. It's having those windows up there. It's a feature. So that kind of helped out as well. And let's see. So we did all the custom cabinets. At the end of the day, when they finally arrived, they looked great. We built a deck in the back, and we closed off. So we have that second unit, right? That second unit, nothing fancy there. We did. It's pretty much a studio apartment. Kitchen, a little bedroom, a stackable washer and dryer space, and a full bath. AC, everything, of course. But what we did is we built kind of like its own entrance to that unit, because where it's at in Denver Heights, you are about 5 blocks from the Alamo Dome, 6 blocks from downtown, right there from Dignity. I mean, you're at a place that is just convenient, right? That I think for March Madness, for all these things, to Airbnb that unit out, the homeowners are going to make more than what their mortgage is for sure. So we went ahead, we blocked it off, so then the homeowners actually have their own little private access, their own little private yard, small yard, low maintenance. And also that unit has its own little yard and gravel area in case they wanted to put a little fire pit, a little patio set. Really cool little setup. So on the roof, we didn't put metal roof back on. We actually put freaking words today, shingles. And because such a tall ceiling, nobody's looking at the damn roof. So that was cool. One thing, we have a tree right up against the house. I wanted to remove it, but it was going to be a big problem. So we had a big storm, and then with that tree, just one of the branches decided to smack the house a little bit. So we had shingle and some wood problems that we had to replace at that point. And then we had more delays because we just kept getting rain after rain, and we had put up the fence already. So the driveway was too narrow, and we needed to finish out the driveway, but they couldn't fit the skid steer in there because it would just sink into the mud. Nothing was compressing, nothing was staying. So we just kept having all these delays because it just wasn't working, and that took on for literally weeks to be able to get that driveway in there. And the driveway was another big discussion because it was like Do we make it concrete? Do we do ribbons? What do we do? And we needed to cut cost. So one thing that we decided to do was just pretty much compact it, and then we lay down gravel over it, which was the cheapest choice, and it looked great when it was done. People loved it. Nobody noticed any difference. I mean, it looked great. So finally got the driveway done, finally get everything done. So we're like, all right, finally, let's start, closing this deal up. Let's start getting everything done so we can go ahead and list it. The electrical. We're not getting final approval. The city is just not, they're taking forever to come. Then when they finally come, they're like, yeah, you're not going to pass because we want a GFCI right here in between these two vanities, even though you have one right there. And we're like, why the hell didn't you tell us this on the rough-in? Everything was already here. Like, it was just stupid little shit the city kept doing. It's like they found their most incompetent inspectors, and they're like, hey, you dumbass, go inspect this house. So they would come. They didn't know what the hell they were doing. So, I mean, they kept just slowing us down because it was one stupid thing after another. And it just kept delaying and delaying. So, and the contractors, I mean, I felt bad for them because they kept having to go back and just do dumb shit, dumb little stuff that the electricians kept delaying. And finally got all that done, everything done. John and I are going there like damn near every other day to water the lawn because we're in the middle of summer. It was 105 for like a month. I mean, that just burns the hell out of the grass, especially when you just planted the grass. So we're there every single afternoon, watering the lawn, making sure it's getting done. So, I mean, this is a project that's just never ending. I mean, it was something that was just, I would literally just drive by the street and I was like, all right, let's do this. Because it was just so stressful just dealing with that project. But we're finally getting it done, and we finally get the approval for the electrical, get everything passed, everything's good, put it on the market. We got it staged, because that's one thing that I always say, if you're selling a high-priced home, pushing values, doing anything, get it staged. And we decided to list this house for $350,000 in Denver Heights. No house has sold for that much, and definitely not the size of the house that we had. And we were definitely pushing values. But John felt very strong about those values because he's like, they're got to pull comps from Dignity. They're going to have to pull it from there. And I was like, I completely disagreed because I was like, why? Why the hell would they pull from Dignity when it's a historic district? It's across a major road of East Commerce. I was like, and Denver Heights has more than enough comps for you to comp this to. Like, it made no sense to me. But John is an agent, and he's been dealing with appraisers and all these people for a long time. So I was like, I'm not going to question it. I was like, if you feel that way. At this point, we were in this project for about $290,000. Remember, originally, we were thinking for selling for $300,000. So, yeah. Kind of a little underwater on that one. So selling for $350,000 was pretty much the only way we were going to get out of it. So we just put it on the market. We're like, all right, let's hope for the best. We staged it, took awesome pictures. We paid extra for the pictures, so they're really cool looking. Definition and all that. That's why I tell people it matters the quality of pictures because people shop online first. And if you take shitty pictures, where I see a lot of people with their iPhones and stuff, you're not going to sell them. Get a professional, spend the money. It was like $200 and the pictures were amazing, right? So we had it staged. We had professional pictures taken, put it on the market instantly. Just people like boom, 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 just loving the house. We love this. We love that. Within 3 days, we were under contract, full price offer. And then we had 2 backup offers with one of them offering $70,000 down cash. I was like, holy crap. Like, never did I imagine that it was going to move that quick. But we'll cover that other point later. But it was fast. So we're going through that process and everything. One thing that still had us kind of scared was the appraisal. Because it's like, we've gotten screwed over by appraisals before. I did a podcast a while back about a duplex that we did in New Braunfels. We were hoping to sell for $250. Well, refinance for $250, and the initial appraiser gave us a value of $158. So $250 to $158. Terrible. But so we're all waiting, sitting at the edge of our seats, and I just one Friday afternoon, John calls me. He's like, "So, you want some good news?" Last thing I'm thinking about is Montana. I was like, some other shit has to happen. I was like, "What? What's up?" He says, "Appraisal came in for Montana, and we appraised for $352. So we sold for $350, but we appraised for $352." I was like, "Oh my God!" Like, amazing, right? This was the best thing that could have happened. So completely ecstatic. Everything is going great. So we're like, all right, there we go. Who was it that screwed us at the end? Oh, again with the city. So we needed our certificate of occupancy. They find the dumbest freaking person working in the office, and they send that moron over. He comes over and he's like, "Oh no, I can't give it because the steps to the deck are 1/8 of an inch off." 1/8 of an inch off. I was like, if you're tripping over 1/8 of an inch, you should be wearing a helmet when you walk. I was so furious. Because we're literally days from closing, and this is the shit that they're bringing to us. So, contractors scrambling, trying to do it. You got to understand, like, the way we did the stairs and everything, it had mortar on the side and everything. If we had to redo all the steps, it would have been a freaking nightmare. Obviously, we would have done them, but it would have been a nightmare. Luckily, the contractor was able to go there and kind of like shimmy them, fix them, and do everything he needed to do, and he fixed them, got them done. That they actually sent a more competent inspector the next time, and he's like, "Yeah, you guys are fine. Everything is good." Finally passed, finally closed. Even to the day of closing, to me, this wasn't a done deal, which was another hesitation for doing this podcast. I was like, man, I don't want to do shit until it's funded, until we are done. And fortunately, everything went through great. The homeowners are so excited about the house. The husband is an architect. He loved all the features, everything we did to the house. So that was really cool. Feedback on that end. And yeah, it finally closed and funded, and it was something that we were sitting with John. I was like, we can't talk about the Montana project anymore. I was like, I feel weird. I was like, it's almost been 2 years. I was like, we've built a bond with this project at this point. But man, was I happy that project was done. And we did learn a lot. We learned about doing projects in those areas. We knew that doing a project in that area was going to be a risk, which is what I wanted to cover now, is kind of like what to keep in mind on a project this size. So one of the biggest things is that if you are doing something you haven't done before, make sure you have a large enough margin in there. If you do not have a large margin, don't get into it. You understand? Because that margin is the one thing that's going to save your ass. Because if anything happens, if anything changes, you start eating into that margin. But if you have a very tight margin, you have nothing to eat away at. Now, in our scenario, when we started, we had a large margin. Towards the end of it, we didn't know what the hell that margin was going to be anymore, right? We were running numbers with John, and I remember I was like, all right, we're going to have to come out of pocket to make our money partner whole. Because one thing, even though a lot of people are like, well, screw it, the money partner took a risk, they knew what it was. And that's just not how we do business. Like, we take care of our money partner. So we're like, all right, if this is going to go south, and they're going to lose, and they're going to actually lose money, we're going to come out of pocket and at least make them whole. Where they're not going to make anything, but they walk away with their money. Terrible return for, 22-month loan, but that is the risk that we take, right? So we were running those numbers, and we're like, man, I hope that doesn't happen. And luckily, John, he was running his comps. He was doing his job. He did a great job at it. And he's like, no, 350, man, let's do this. He's like, I know they got to pull from Dignity and all this. And I was like, all right. And just as he said, it happened. So we were ecstatic. Everything worked out, but make sure your margins are large. Another thing is, we didn't do this too much, but this is something that you can get into a lot of trouble with, is do not pay your contractors in advance. Contractors get very... They get very excited with the project, and they feel like they're moving a lot faster than they actually are, and they try to like kind of get ahead of themselves, and they keep asking you for draws. So when they ask you for a draw and you already gave them one, make sure that previous draws tasks are completed. You understand? Like, make sure all that stuff is completed before you give them the next draw. And they'll use excuses of, oh, if you want to slow down the project, or all this other bullshit excuses they want to use. Like, dude, I don't want to slow down shit. You asked for 30 grand. You were going to do this. Get that shit done, and I'll give you another 20 or another 15 or whatever it is that you do, right? But if you say you're going to do something, do it. I'm not slowing down the project. You are. You're not completing the job you told me you were going to complete. So don't pay them in advance when they're not completing the job they told you they were going to complete. Go inspect it. And when they tell you, hey, I need this much for X number of things, get them itemized. What are you getting? What are you doing? Because then you can go back and check those things, especially if you don't know what you're doing. I mean, if you don't know what you're doing, you shouldn't be doing a project this scope. This is a large scope of project. You should not be in it. But if even if you're somewhat experienced, you get an itemized bid. Because what about the foundation? What about the framing? What about all these? Like, what's everything that you're doing with this amount of money? Up to what point are you getting to? You understand? So then they don't get too ahead of the draws, because they'll just keep asking it. And if they get into trouble on other projects, they start pulling from yours. You don't want any of that shit from happening. So you want to make sure to just keep, only give them money when they've completed the tasks. Quality matters. So don't cut corners. That's one thing that we realized why our property sold. So we ran comps in a lot of the projects in those areas, and we saw the majority of the projects taking over 100 days to sell. And that kind of had worried us a little bit. But when we would go look at all these projects, I tell you, I saw a lot of projects in Denver Heights and Dignity. Holy crap, the level of crap work that people are doing blows my mind. I mean, you have literally novice investors or flippers in there trying to flip these houses that need $150,000 in renovation, and they're cutting corners every which way they can. I did not see one decent house in that area. They all blew my mind at how shitty the work was. Everything, crooked walls, bad foundation. One idiot used shiplap, cut it, the long way, little pieces as base molding. I mean, they were plugging up holes with foam spray and then putting shiplap on it. I mean, they were putting shiplap literally everywhere. That area is kind of like when subway tiles became famous and people were putting subway tiles everywhere. Downtown, they're putting shiplap everywhere. And it's like, look, it's an accent piece. It's not a freaking fix-all piece, But we started going through all these projects, and we're like, all right, the work is shit. You understand? Like, that's why we feel that these houses are not selling. So, and then when we put ours on the market for a lot more than what all these other houses sold for, and we sell in 3 days with 3 backup offers, I mean, it goes to show that quality matters. And the quality of this house, not, because we did it, but it was freaking good. The quality of this house was really good. Everything the contractors did, they did really good work. Attention to detail on everything. It was a good project. It was done very, very well. You understand? So that does matter. Another thing, when you get into trouble, because you will get into trouble. We've gotten into trouble a few times already in construction. It happens. You're doing a lot of deals. It happens. You're going to get into trouble. Don't cut down your construction costs. Don't cut down your construction budget. Like, that's the only thing that's going to pull you out. We go back to the previous one of quality. There's so many people that start getting into trouble, and they just start cutting corners and using cheaper material and using shittier stuff. it won't sell the house. The only way out is to sell the house for as much as possible. You cannot sell the house for as much as possible if you didn't do the quality work. You're just not going to. So don't do that to yourself. If you're in trouble, it sucks, but the only way out is through. And the only way through is to do quality work. What you got to do is actually just start getting creative and seeing where can you cut corners, right? Not cut corners, but where can you use cheaper materials like we did on the siding, like we did on the roof. You know, where we did that on the tile work, right? And not on the tile work, but on the tile. And then we worked it so it looks really nice. And we do that on a lot of things where it's not really, we know it's not going to matter. And we know we can manipulate it so it looks better than what it really is, right? It looks higher quality than it really is. So don't cut corners, because that's your only way out, is to have a well done finished product. You understand? And the last one, verify with your city when you are doing 100-year-old homes on how is the land, is everything good, is, you know, the way it's platted correct, it's the way it's labeled, all these things, is it good before you start? Because then you don't want to be halfway through a project and then get hit with the city, oh, this shit is not right, and now we have another 6-week delay. Because in the middle of a project, having a delay, like we told you a bunch of times, delays the contractors. So now, if you have everybody line up and you have a 6-week delay, and let's say you're in the process of sheetrocking or whatever, now your sheetrockers are out looking for other jobs, and they find other jobs. And then when you finally get whatever you needed done, you call them, and they're like, yeah, well, you're going to have to wait another 2 or 3 weeks before I can get to your job. You understand? So now you didn't just lose the 6 weeks of what it took for the city to do their thing, but now you're losing another 2 or 3 weeks before you can get your guys back on the actual project. Or you got to go looking for other contractor, and guess what? You have 2 contractors available at that time. Really expensive ones or really shitty ones. That's pretty much what it is. Because you're going to have really expensive ones that have the crews, or you're going to have really shitty ones that don't have the work. And there's a reason they don't have the work. So don't put yourself in that position. So again, that's pretty much a breakdown of this project. There's a million more things to talk about. I mean, if you guys really want to find out a lot more and all the inside scoop of this project, buy me a glass of scotch and I'll tell you. But on all seriousness, I mean, this could go on for hours if I tell you every little thing that happened. There are a million of them. I told you the highlights, all the stuff we learned and everything. All said and done, I think we walked away with 30 grand. All said and done. It's profit. The investor got their money back, and obviously a percentage of that. We all made a little bit of money, and I think to me that's a huge win. From going of analyzing this deal at one point and saying, shit, we're going to have to come out of pocket and make our investor whole, to saying, oh, we can actually put some money in our pocket. This is cool. So not the way you should do business for sure. This wasn't our plan from the beginning. Unfortunately we got hit with a lot of stuff, but it's a learning process, right? I mean, that's why we get into this business. If you don't have the man, I'm trying to look for a nicer word. But if you don't have the balls to withstand all this drama, all these problems, all these headaches, all these contractors starting to screw you over, the chance that you might have to come out of pocket because your investor's going to take a hit. I mean, all these things. And if you don't have the balls to deal with all that, like, you're just not going to be able to move on, right? You got to take risks. The only way you grow a business is by taking risks. And we try to compensate our investors very well for the risks that we take. We try to make sure they're partners with us, they're working with us, and then we try to bring them more deals afterwards with very, very little risk so they can make very easy money and try to compensate for the riskier ones. But it's like, as a business, when you try to grow, you just have to take risks. And what these risks have taught us is that I can handle another project downtown. Now, but this time, it's going to be completely different. right? We're going to make sure that how we're buying it, we're going to make sure we have the right contractors lined up. We already know a lot of things to understand. We already know the majority of the houses in those areas, we're going to have to damn near rebuild. And you're not rebuilding a 1,600 square foot home for $100,000. Get that out of your head. And because, I mean, well, I'm not even going to begin to talk about the neighbors. But, you know, there's some people out there that are insane. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions or anything you felt I left out, comment below. Let me know. Shoot me an email. I will let you know. I'll share everything. It's a lot. I don't know what I missed. I don't know if I forgot something. So it's a lot. If there's anything you want to know, shoot me a message, comment below, let me know, and I'll reach out to you. And again, buy me a glass of scotch, and you'll get a lot more information. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will catch you guys on the next one.